Hi, I'm Cynthia. I'm an artist, and I'm here to talk about my experience as a first year animation student at the One Academy. For the fifth episode, I'll be talking about Design Fundamentals CG Lab Workshop. For this class, we focused on learning Adobe Illustrator while also applying what we learned from Design Fundamentals class. We had exercises every day, and it was basically learning the tools along the way. I didn't struggle as much because our lecturers kind of guided us through the exercises. For exercise 1, we did a vector of this house. I wasn't sure what we were supposed to do at first, but I followed the wonkiness of the original photo and made it look as organic as I could. I didn't want the lines to be super straight and super clean. And I even made like 4 columns of different colors. 4 columns of different colors of wood for the wall. Exercise 2 is like an exercise sheet to practice the pen tool. Our lecturer was organized when it came to his exercises. It was really easy for the students to follow him. For exercise 3, we did gradients. I think I exported this wrong. I was supposed to export only this blue part. For exercise 4, we played with fonts. We had to replicate the one on the right using the real font and use the pen tool to recreate the shape of the letter. For exercise 5, I think we created something like a mandala. Took out around 10 shapes to create a symbol, and I made a butterfly. Exercise 6 was different. We had to replicate and vector an illustrator's artwork. We had to do the different hair layers and create this eye. I really like this one too. It looks pretty. For exercise 7, I remember this the most, but I forgot how we got to this. I love the colors, but it definitely took a toll on our laptops. Especially this one that looks like a worm. For exercise 8, we did the game console buttons. Even added the PlayStation logo down here. For exercise 9, we morphed and warped the fonts to fit different shapes. Lastly, for exercise 10, we did 3D sushi. I don't remember how we did it, but we just did. We also had a quiz in the middle of the term. We did a Christmas menu. I had so much trouble with this because I wasn't sure if we had to use the pen tool on the small texts here. But the point of all the exercises was for us to be able to do our assessments, and we had 2. The first one was the isometric island, and the second one was the animal character. But I'll start with the animal character because I wanted to save the isometric island for last. So for this assessment, we had to create an animal character, make it seem human. The proper term for it is anthropomorphize. We also had to add value to the character by telling the audience something about the chosen animal or by speaking up about them. I immediately chose to talk about animal cruelty. I was thinking of choosing among farm animals, but I decided to go with the rabbit character. I added my research on how rabbits are mainly tested on by the cosmetic industry. I also added Save Ralph as a reference for my topic. For the design, I was going to go with a feminine white rabbit. My initial sketch was to have the bunny look at the mirror as she's putting on makeup, while her real body is injured and filled with scars. I was planning on submitting this gradient style illustration because I forgot that it was supposed to be cel shaded. Here's my process, and this is the final outcome. Moving on to our initial assessment. This actually came before the animal character. I had to talk about this last because it had so many requirements. Since this project was given to us around August to September, I thought it would be nice to make a Halloween-themed island since we were approaching October. I knew I wanted witches, and I used Hocus Pocus as a reference. I also looked at Tim Burton's Corpse Bride and Nightmare Before Christmas for the designs. Finalized theme was Autumn Island plus 16th century witch town. I think the autumn would fit perfectly into the theme that I wanted to do, especially the colors. So we were required to have 4 detailed buildings, 10 medium to large flora, 5 vehicles, and since mine was set in the 16th century, I had to make carriages. 5 animals, can have the same type but different look, and I also added a werewolf for fun. 5 characters, 3 landscape. I did a tree, which I turned into a cave for the final look because I think it looks better. A large boulder and a waterfall. And one unique feature that I added was the giant pumpkin at the entrance of the Witchtown Island. And the island had to be organic, and it had to have 2 levels. This is my final sketch, which I made in Photoshop. And this is the only time I use Photoshop for this because I'm more comfortable with it. But we did have to vector the island in Illustrator later on. And this is where I applied a tetradic color palette. I added this in Illustrator and started vectoring. For my work in progress, I started filling up level 1 by adding flora and putting in the cave and the boulder for the werewolf's den. Then I started putting in the buildings, the vehicles, and added trees and shrubs in different places. Then I added the waterfall that comes from the well. It doesn't make any sense. And added the characters and the rest of the animals. Here is the final artwork. For this class, I think what matters to our lecturer is that we submit all exercises, tests, and assessments completely and apply what we learned throughout the course. I think that's why he made sure that we could finish the exercise within 3 hours so that it wouldn't take up time outside of class hours. And if you could submit the requirements and be able to give a little more than what's necessary, they'd be generous with grades. My organization skills definitely improved. I already consider myself very organized, but given all the requirements, especially with the isometric island, I had to make a list of what I needed to vector and which ones go at the bottom or on top. So it was a relief to have it as the first assessment. But overall, I enjoyed this class because it was so efficient. For this class, combined with design fundamentals, I got an A. And now that I'm done with design fundamentals, I'll be talking about the 3 remaining classes for the next episode. Stay tuned!